If you want to do the signal one more time, just because they have us in a. Okay, great, great. Great, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Here we go. All right. I want to welcome everyone to the Parks and Community Service Commission regular meeting of March 14th. At this time, I'm calling the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. If we can have the Pledge of Allegiance led by our illustrious at-large Commissioner, Cheyenne Wright, that would be wonderful. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If we can have the roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Glab,
Here.
Commissioner Garcia Arcos,
Here.
Commissioner Rutherford,
Here.
Commissioner Wall,
Here.
Commissioner Wright. Here. Vice Chair Brown. Here. Chair Dorn Parker.
Here?
We have quorum.
Great, thank you. At this time, we will call for public comments of matters not listed on the agenda. So do we have anybody first in the audience that would like to make public comments? All right, at this time, do we have anybody from online?
We got someone.
Oh, we do have someone there. Okay.
Hola, buenas tardes. Me llamo Leticia Ortiz, vengo representando la comunidad de la Shalimar Drive. Me gustaría ayudarles por todo. Les agradezco por todo el trabajo que hacen por la comunidad de Costa Mesa. Vengo a traerles la invitación para involucrarnos y dejarnos participar en el proyecto del Parque de la Shalimar para que nuestros hijos se involucren en el proyecto y sean parte del cambio para ellos mismos y de nuestra comunidad. Puedo presentarles que las mujeres trabajamos juntas, conectadas, informadas. Puede traer paz, confianza y nuestra comunidad unida. Gracias por su tiempo y espero que pronto nos tengan una buena noticia.
Thank you. You're going to do some translation?
I'll do the translation.
Oh, okay, you're going to do, because I wasn't sure. Okay, you're going to do the translation? After, okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Sanchez. I have been a resident of Shalimar Drive for 12 years. I also would like to participate in the making of the new Shalimar Park project. I would also like to thank you for allowing the community to be involved of planting the trees in Shalimar Drive. We are taking good care of them. A little bit about myself. I am growing dragon fruit, also known as pitaya, strawberries, pineapples, blueberries, tomatoes, chilies, and aloe vera. I would like to extend an invitation to join us on Shalimar Drive for Love Costa Mesa Day. It takes place on May 18th. We will be planting dozens of fruit trees all around Shalimar with the help of the community and experts. Thank you for listening and hope to see you all there.
Thank you, Jay. And anybody else would like to speak? Okay, Commissioner, would you like to translate? That would really help us. Thank you. So everyone knows if a request comes to the city, by at least 24 hours, the city does try to provide translators. Unfortunately, not today. But thank you for pitching in. Oh, we have another.
Yes, please. Solo que Cristian me va a tener que traducir. Bueno, pues mi nombre es Juana Trejo y formo parte de una organización sin fines de lucro que se llama Promotores de Salud del Condado de Orange. Y también venimos a hacerles primero el agradecimiento por estar formando parte de este cambio positivo para la comunidad de Chalimar, pero nos gustaría también hacer la invitación para que se pudiera extender en todo Costa Mesa. Creo que nuestras comunidades merecen tener la oportunidad de formar parte y estamos bien agradecidos con ustedes por traer esos cambios positivos para todas nuestras comunidades. Que Dios los bendiga. Gracias.
Thank you. Would anybody else in the audience like to come forward? Okay. Commissioner?
Oh,
Yeah.
we do have one, oh, never mind. Their hand was now, we have Zoom.
Okay, so
audience.
nobody on Zoom. Okay, I was going to ask Commissioner to help translate. Didn't you say you were going to, Garcia Arcos, you were going to help translate what she was saying?
If that's okay with
Yeah,
you.
oh, please.
Okay, I'll start with Juana because it's a little bit fresh.
Okay.
So I'm just going to repeat what Juana said. She made an introduction. She said, "My name is Juana Trejo, and I do appreciate what you're doing for Shalimar. And I would also like to invite you to our area in Costa Mesa, and they're Promotoras de Salud, which is a nonprofit that just took, they did a celebration not too long ago, and that she wants to thank you all for what you do, and yeah, she's very blessed to be part of Costa Mesa, and we'll continue to see the growth, and hopefully we can all collaborate together."
Great.
And then I have Leticia.
Yeah.
So she was introducing herself. "Hello, my name is Leticia Ortiz. I come to represent Shalimar Drive, and I would like to say thank you for everything you do in the community of Costa Mesa. I came to extend an invitation to be involved and participate in the project of the Shalimar Park for us and for our children to get involved and be part of the change that we need in our community." And then she quoted, "Together as women, working hard together, connected, informed, and educated, we can make that difference in our community, united. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you guys come back with a reply, a positive reply. Thank you."
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia Arcos. So did the hand go back up on the Zoom? Okay.
Caller ending in 814, you may now speak.
Hi.
Hello.
There, I have to turn off my computer sound. I actually wanted to comment on an agenda item, but as long as I'm here, I have been noticing a proliferation of invasive plants in our parks. Some of them are ornamentals that possibly the city planted when nobody knew any better. But I would just urge the commission to work with staff to eliminate invasive plants from our parks, particularly, and from our parkways and from our medians and any other areas. I was shocked the other day to see the proliferation of Vinca major in one of our parks, which is very invasive. And I think because of the rains, maybe it's taken over broad areas. And there are many other invasive plants that we don't want to be part of spreading them around. And so I'd encourage you to work with the Invasive Plant Council as well as the California Department of Fish and Wildlife on clearing those out of our parks and not planting them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speaker on Zoom?
If there are any other members who wish to speak, please raise your hand. There are no other hands raised.
Thank you. At this time, I will close public comments and move to commissioner comments. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and start to my left. If Commissioner Wright would like to start, we'd love to hear from
Sure,
you.
happy to. I'll keep it brief today. I think the only thing I wanted to highlight and bring to everyone's attention is that the Planning Commission just saw the pedestrian master plan draft, and that will be going to council soon. And I've been thinking a lot about how your most common type of walking that people do is walking to their nearby park. So unless we're talking about utility walking, which is like to work or to the grocery store, I often see people walking to parks. And so just to be mindful of that and to possibly give feedback to your council members on how we could be mindful of the overlap there within our departments. And yeah, looking forward to a good meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'll move down to Commissioner Wall.
Okay. This is going to be a hat tip to Rob Ryan and his crew over there in Public Works. Before last month's meeting, I stepped over and just pointed out to him, I had some pictures I'd taken on my phone of a tree on Oriole Drive that was in dire need of some repair work. In fact, if we can put that picture up there.
It's up. If you move your item to presentation, commissioners
is.
should be able to see it.
Okay. So this was before and after, and you can see that that tree, kind of midway on Oriole Drive, was jacked up pretty well in the air, probably a good almost 2 feet. So I pointed this out to Rob, and the hat tip comes because within the span of the month between then and now, they've already been on the scene and they repaired it and cleaned it up very nicely. And that's the kind of work that those guys do over there. And I just wanted to recognize that and just say thanks. And that's my comments for tonight.
Great. And then if we can hear from Commissioner Rutherford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see everyone. I just wanted to quickly thank our city staff, the amazing team, Monique, Rob, Ashley, Laura, and team. I know there continues to be a challenging time for the department, and especially as we're looking for a new chair. So I really appreciate how everybody in the team has stepped up. I think our parks are really shining right now with the projects that are underway. So just want to express my continued appreciation. I think it continues to be a really exciting and historic time for Costa Mesa Parks. And so you're all such an important part of that. And then also just to remind everyone that, with the amount of funding and what's available and projects planned for parks, speaking up is a key part of that. So people that speak up and a lot of the ideas and things that are done in our parks are a reflection of input that's received. So really appreciate to hear some of the input from folks tonight and encourage you to continue speaking up because your ideas will shape the future of parks in Costa Mesa. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. And we'll go over to the far end. Do we have Commissioner Glab? Do you have some comments?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of Commissioner Wall and Commissioner Rutherford. Coming down to the city to ask questions or get any help can be a little intimidating. And every time I come down and reach out for help through the city, I've always been greeted with respect and dignity. And everybody down here is very helpful and genuine. Ms. Fatua, Ms. Reyes, Mr. Young with the city engineering. And so, and I don't think it's just me because my wife says I have a very unapproachable face. So I think it's just the fact that everybody here is so kind and considerate. So I just wanted to thank him as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia Arcos?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to thank everybody that made it out and was able to speak what they've been holding for a while. I feel like now we're truly opening up, and I did also want to do a special shout out to them specifically now that they're here because they're the leaders that we are coming to. This is the reason why we're able to do what we're doing. So if you look at them, they've actually collaborated in many kermeses. That's when you help people in need, and they've come up with the idea, they've executed it, and this is like weeks on end of planning just for one kermes. And just last year and this year, we've raised over $100,000 for families in need, all cash, and we just gave it to them for the funeral expenses, specifically when someone passes away. And so one of the families is here that was able to be blessed from that. And I wanted to also echo what they mentioned is we're going to have an event for Love Costa Mesa Day, May 18th, and we got a donation from Thriven to plant dozens of fruit trees. We're still trying to figure out where they're going to go, but it's all going to be in private property. And we're going to have a lot of experts, certified arborists, board certified master arborists, and just anybody that is willing to lend a hand and educate, inform us. And it's just a focus on sustainability because a lot of the families there are living paycheck to paycheck, and a lot of them are working 2 jobs and can't spend time with their kids. So I think having this focus is educating them for the future to not only appreciate the trees and care for them, but also be a little bit more sustainable financially. But yeah, that's a shout out, and I would like to translate if that's okay with you, so they know what I'm talking about.
Please, please.
Yeah. Les quería agradecer por venir. Y como le estaba mencionando al equipo aquí, que muchas gracias por todo lo que han hecho. En verdad es un honor poder trabajar con ustedes. Y me da mucha alegría poder reconocer que ustedes han hecho mucha colaboración y han ayudado muchas familias en necesidad. Y sé que todo lo que hacen lo hacen de corazón. So, muchas gracias por venir a hablar y aparte a venir a presentarse hoy. En verdad, muchas gracias y les puedo garantizar que esto solamente es el principio. Muchas gracias. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Definitely. Okay, at this time, then I'll move to Vice Chair Brown.
Good evening. I want to start with thanks too, and I want to thank the city staff for their staffing of these commissions and of committees, and just reflect for a moment how important they are to the process. Commissioner, I appreciate your note that there's an opening up that happens, and I think that the work that happens in committees and commissions is about that kind of opening up. And so I just want to acknowledge that it takes a lot of work to staff, but for city staff and especially leadership who are listening, I think this is a really important part of government, so I just want to acknowledge that. It slows the process down, I know, in some ways when we're sending things back to a committee and then to a commission, but I think better work will result after that. It makes it more complex too, but I think it speaks to the nuances of the needs in Costa Mesa. And so I want to acknowledge Mr. Dalton for his work with the Fairview Park, because that is such a complex project, and we are the PACS Commission, and parks are an important part of our business. And so just as I go to those Fairview Park committee meetings, I'm reminded again and again how complex your job must be. So we're here if you need anything, and just personally, like if you ever wanted to connect, if there are things that you need, you want to talk about, I'm here to support you, we're here to support you. So thank you for that. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge how important the process of feedback and engagement is around the work that our committees do. And I say this overall, right? One thing that did come up at the last Fairview Park committee meeting was a conversation around the Fairview Park master plan. And I know that we will be seeing an update on the master plan. There was some conversation at the committee meeting, however, about the order of when the Fairview Park committee will see it and then when PACS will see it. And so I think it's something that we should all be thinking about, which is what makes sense in terms of our government process, in terms of how feedback is solicited from these important committees, and how that can serve as a source of expertise and support for those of us who are then in commissions and the city council to make informed decisions. So this is just something on my mind, having been to the Fairview Park Committee meeting, and I wanted to raise that all with us because I know that we will oftentimes have questions and want to make recommendations, and I think it will be important to be informed by as much as we can. So that's one set of reflections that I had. And then just to double down on parks and the need for this commission to spend some time thinking about parks, I feel really supported in the work that we do in terms of the community services and the recreation, and I really appreciate that. I'm hoping that in the coming year, we'll be able to spend some similar time on parks because we have such a thriving park ecology, if you will. I think there are a lot of issues to consider, and the person who zoomed in terms of invasive species raised one aspect of parks that we might want to consider. But just support from my end in terms of making sure that parks are a critical part of our agenda in a variety of ways. That's it.
Thank you. And I just have a few things sort of in the theme. I wanted to thank the staff. I was lucky enough to go to the friendship dance at the senior center. And I know this is a new avenue that we're working with adults of different abilities and to make sure they can enjoy the city. What I saw was absolutely incredible. I think there were at least 30 or 40 adults making friendship braces, dancing. The DJ was there, and he's part of the community of different abilities. So I grabbed his card for when hopefully our house will be done. Maybe we'll have an open street party with the DJ. But it also let me understand how much the staff is really looking at our diversity in our city and understanding what kind of services we can offer. It's not the traditional in the box, and I know this has taken a lot of work, especially coming out of COVID and really understanding our community. So I just want to thank, it was my pleasure that I got to go and see this work and see these adults, and also understanding how the city is now being known in this community as being very welcoming space and having resources. So when you talk about, how do we do things, how do we communicate, how do we make sure everyone is invited? The other part is, because I love to go to parks, is going to Harper Park and Brentwood and Jordan Park, understanding how much the community continues to grow in its use. So piggybacking on Vice Chair Brown is I would love to see a little bit more of our agenda devoted to, especially now we have a lot of resources coming into the parks, not just the timing of what's happening and the capital, the capital improvements we're doing, but also what's kind of in the parks. And I don't know if we ever have this. I know we have a lot of numbers because there's signups, but I just was floored when I went by twice to Jordan Park at a time. I wasn't sure anybody was going to be there. And I was floored the number of seniors, young people, toddlers, and then, there was a couple whole families there that were visitors, that they were there visiting families. So our parks are very used, but also it means that they have to be maintained and trash and making sure dog bags are there and things like that. And so I know that the more use they get, the more maintenance it needs. And Rob and your staff really have done a great job, but I know there'll be pressures coming up because they're not going away. The parks are not going away. And as we renovate and innovate, and especially if we end up updating our playground equipments like in Brentwood Park, that'll make it more. The other thing is I'd like to say thank you to everyone who came. Commissioner Garcia Arcos has informed me, and we meet for coffee explaining what the community has, how connected you all are to support one another, but also how excited you are to make sure you're being provided resources from the cities, from not just the parks, but how to engage the community to take care of plants, trees, playground. So and now putting faces to names. So thank you for taking the time to come. I'm so appreciative. And piggybacking a little bit on Commissioner Brown, we talk about process. I know I'm so grateful that Commissioner Brown is Fairview Park and Commissioner Wall, your senior center, is to engage us together and talk about process, because I know just selfishly on my part, it's important for me to hear from the committee at Fairview, because they do the big big dive. They do the information. They're out there. Sort of our representative is I'd love us to talk a little bit to make sure Fairview Park Committee, when the master plan comes up, that they have full right, advantage, and time to analyze it. And then their comments come to us as the PACs, because then ours then goes if you talk about process. So thank you for bringing that up. So any other comments or suggestions from the commissioners? All right. Then we'll go ahead and move to old business. And if someone wants to make a motion in a second.
Move to approve.
All right. Is there any questions on the minutes? At this time, do we have any public comments on the minutes?
Not at this time.
Okay, great. So if we can, yes? Oh, if you have a comment on the minutes, if you can come up to the mic. Okay, I'll put the podium mic on.
If my memory serves, if you look at the very end of the minutes, someone will do that. I think it's incorrect. I don't think you're the Arts Commission.
Parks.
Is that true? No. Laura, you got to put that down.
Oh.
We can resolve that clerical error.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Eric from the Fairview Park Steering Commission, by the way.
Thank you, Eric, for the Fairview Park. Okay. Any other comments from the public or otherwise? If we can have an amended motion with that change and that correction to show that we're the PACS Commission meeting. Chair, Commissioner Rutherford, would you amend your motion to include that correction?
So moved.
And same with Commissioner Wright to amend your second. Okay. Any other one? So I think if you can register your vote. Yes. I don't see it registered, do you? Is it registering?
This isn't green on there, like mine's green, but his isn't turned green.
It's not allowing me.
His yes isn't turned green.
I can do a verbal motion then, that way a manual vote.
Okay.
Commissioner Glapp?
Here, yes.
Commissioner Garcia Arcos?
Yes.
Oh, now it worked. Okay. Well, okay, so now the motion carries 7-0 because now it did work.
It did pop
Yeah.
up.
Yes.
Okay, there it goes, 7-0.
To amend the minutes
To
with the
amended
corrections.
minutes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we do have that post. And then at this time, we'll go ahead and do the donation of 2 trees at Fairview Park. So before we move into that, do we have anybody in the audience who'd like to make a comment on this agenda item, if you can come forward?
So typically we do staff presentations first before.
Okay. Great. So I stand corrected. Let's do the staff presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Dorn Parker, commissioners, members of the public, fellow staff. The item before you is the donation of 2 trees and memorial bench and plaque at Fairview Park. This was at last month's meeting, so it's a little bit of a revisit. I'll recap some. So the city did receive a request from Michael and Denise Moon requesting permission to donate a bench, plaque, and 2 trees in memory of Denise Moon's father, Dr. Anthony Kisiagli. The donated items would be located in the developed area at Fairview Park. This is a sample of the bench. This is similar to one that's already out at the Bluffs. We stick with that same theme. I think match existing site furnishings. There's a depiction of where the memorial was proposed to be located. The star at the top of the screen there would be where the bench and one of the trees would be located. It's near a walking path. Obviously, the tree would be moved away from the walking path, so not to disturb that. The star at towards the bottom of the screen is where the second tree was proposed to be located. It's kind of near that kidney-shaped planter, if you're familiar with that, off the entrance to the park. The donation locations were reviewed by Mr. Dalton, the Fairview Park Administrator. Just a few more pictures. The one on the left depicts kind of a general location of the bench and the first tree. That picture on the right as a general, again, location of the second tree. The commission at the time voted to direct staff to seek input from Fairview Park Steering Committee at their next scheduled meeting. Fairview Park Administrator Kelly Dalton did present the donation request to the committee on February 14th. The committee made the following recommendations. The first was to approve the installation of the bench with no concrete pad. The second was to defer the 2 trees and in-ground monument to an alternative park or parks due to environmental and archaeological concerns. Should the commission approve the installation of the bench, it would require 3 1-foot by 2-foot footings to secure the bench and hold it up. Should the commission approve the planting of the trees, the requester would be required to choose from a pre-approved list of native trees. That would include a close live oak, cork oak, white alder, western sycamore, or California bay. Additionally, should the commission decide to deny the request to plant the trees, the Moons would respectfully withdraw their request and donation as their desire is to have the trees and bench located at the same park. Staff has reviewed the suggested location, determined the location is suitable for the donated bench and plaque and trees. The installation of the bench and plaque and trees would have minimal fiscal impact on the city as the donor would incur the cost of all the donated items. The submitted request does meet the requirements as set forth by City Council policy. Therefore, it would recommend that the commission approve the request from Mr. and Mrs. Moon for the donation. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay.
If I can just chime in too, and if you have any questions of Mr. Dalton, the Fairview Park Administrator, he is also here to answer anything as well. So.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go back here. So at this time, I think we'll see if any of the commissioners first have questions before public comments. Do we have? Yes.
Just out of curiosity, Rob, so you mentioned installing the coast live oak, also known as a Quercus agrifolia. From studies shown, it actually gets summer rot from too much irrigation in the summer, right? Is that correct?
It can. You find that oaks traditionally, once they're planted and they kind of make it past that initial stage, they're very adaptable. So we find that that's the case in most areas. Even in lawn areas, they are adaptable. What oaks really don't like is change. So if you start messing around beneath them, you keep some oak leaf litter down below them, they tend to do pretty well. But they are subject to summer rot. It could be an issue. Correct.
Okay. Yeah, because I was attending 2 weeks ago. I attended this seminar that Devil's Nursery presented on research that because of the environment changing, they're actually shifting up north now. So I think if we can maybe choose for this information, I think we can choose from a different tree, specifically not that one, just for this reason, because I'm noticing that park does have the grass line going towards the bark, so there's no litter, right? Foliage litter, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, and then the damage, I'm noticing that, and this is from observations, and this is maybe if you want to take note of this, and hopefully we can talk this at a different situation or scenario. But I'm noticing that a lot of the staff members are driving over the roots of these trees. That's a lot of compaction, and eventually that's not going to show within like 5 to 10 years. So it may take some time, but there's going to be decline. So are we really investing in our trees? We're not going to see it now, but 5 to 10 years from now, we're going to notice that they're declining. So just wanted to bring that to your guys' attention.
Commissioner Rutherford?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to piggyback on the commissioner's comments. I think that's a great point, actually, that you mentioned, and just something that we should just, not to belabor the point, because I know you've taken that into consideration, Rob, but I think just generally, as we're considering like any type of plant palette for, this and other locations, the climate is changing, right? Like we're living through a period of dramatic climate change, and it's important to plan for that and what we select. Is it possible, my last question is it possible to put in the bench without the concrete pad?
So it doesn't require a necessarily a concrete pad, but it would require 3 concrete footings. So there's 2 ways we can mount it. Either we pour a concrete pad and then bolt about the size of the bench, and then you would bolt the bench on a surface mount to that pad. But what we would propose is an in-ground mount, which would require 3 1 foot by 2 foot concrete footings to hold the bench up.
Great. So there
Those
wouldn't
would be below the surface, much like the one that was in the photo.
Very cool. So there would not be a concrete pad poured.
Doesn't need to be a concrete pad, no.
Excellent.
Is that it? Okay, Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, I have a question, and I don't know who could speak to this the best, but could you explain to me why the Fairview Committee, they supported the motion to not have the trees included, even if it's from the list of the pre-approved native trees? Could you speak to the nature of that motion they made?
It might be best we have some members of the committee here. It might be best to hear from them. I would only be assuming.
I could wait till then, yeah.
Yeah, I'd only be assuming what their concerns would be with that.
I just got permission that you can come up and speak to the nature of that if you'd like.
I mean, that's up to the chair as far as if we wait for public comments or now. But
So what I think is, up and down, I'm sorry. So I'd prefer if the commissioners, like the questions that they're looking for from those committee members, you go ahead and ask right now so they know to address that. But I prefer to complete the commissioner comments before we go back and forth.
Staff is available. Could I direct my question
Yes.
to Mr.
Staff.
Dalton?
Yes.
Can you go ahead and clarify your question once again?
Can you speak to the nature of the motion where the Fairview Park Committee decided to approve solely the bench, not the trees, even though the trees the applicant would have to choose from would be from the pre-approved list, right?
Yes. My belief is that the committee's concern lies in that specific area may have not originally contained trees. So it might have originally been more of a native foreland, grassland, or something that wouldn't have originally supported trees. So I think the concern lies in putting in something that's not native to that specific location, although it still may be native to Southern California. It wasn't originally in that site and could pose ecological issues to the remaining sensitive habitat areas that are not right there, but are elsewhere within the park.
Yeah, so from a staff perspective and why this motion is recommended to be approved, is that because those trees are from a pre-approved list that are found in, is it the general SoCal area, or are we going more specific?
We don't believe that the area proposed to add the trees would be of a detriment to the ecology of the area. If we were putting these on the bluff or somewhere in the middle of the mesa where they're going to be really, requiring irrigation and things like that, where it's going to be, a new roosting place for raptors, that would be more of a conflict. But the current uses in the manicured developed lawn area, this is generally compatible with those current uses, and there's not really a long-term plan to change that back to what it was originally, a native habitat.
Okay, cool. I think that's all for now from me. Thanks.
Okay. Vice Chair Brown.
Do you mind sticking around, Kelly, because this might be helpful to have you here?
Sure.
So my analysis of what I heard at the Fairview Park Committee was more extensive than that in terms of their concerns. And I did take extensive notes, which I'm looking through right now, but I'm going to distill them down, and I will count on the Fairview Park Committee to get up and to fill in the things that I've missed. My question, but I have a few points, but my question is, I would like to hear analysis as to why city staff chose not to take the recommendation of the Fairview Park Committee. And it's both a procedural question, it's a question about the process, and it's a question about the specifics. So here's what I heard at the meeting, though. I'll start with the most important and least, is there is a question about how does this fit into the master plan? So we're at a point where we are going through and spending a lot of money and time doing an extensive master plan. So what I have down here, and I'm sorry, what kind of, what's our plan for the master plan? And I think a lot of us are still we're looking forward to that update because we haven't seen it. How do these trees fit into there? What kind of new trees fall in line with that? I think issues of placement are a part of it. So I think that there's a lot of work going on. And so I'm sorry, I'm talking with my back to you. There's a lot of work going on, and there's some concern about planting trees without taking into account the full master plan. Because of course this opens a door to planting other trees. So if we get many, many requests, unlikely, but this sets a precedence, right? So how are we going to do that? And with all of the resources and time with Fairview Park, you know, the recommendation is there are lots of other parks that could use those trees. Like, let's just give the master plan process time to be figured out. The second concern, which is a major one, is the archaeological issues. And we're talking about indigenous communities here. And we're talking about then the need to do some sort of survey to make sure that the placement of this is in line with the respect for that. I don't know the details, but that was a concern that was raised. I think there was a question around plaques. We were at the committee meeting not sure what the plaque would look like. I think at that time city staff wasn't sure if it would be a plaque on a bench or a separate plaque. But they raised the committee raised some interesting questions around, like, how many plaques is it appropriate to have in a park, which I had never really thought of. But, you know, I really do welcome these donations, but how is it in line with the master plan? I don't know, because I haven't seen the master plan, but it's why the committee was hesitant. No, the committee was strongly in favor of not planting the trees. So I guess to go back to my question is, I would love to hear the analysis, both in terms of the process and then the specificities as to why the recommendation is completely counter to the committee.
To address the first part?
Yeah, sure. For the first part, the procedure part of it is staff looks at council policy and a set of rules and regulations that is our job to abide by and stay within those rails. This donation met all of those aspects. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to step out of that. This body does have that ability to step outside of that. So I need to analyze this from my perspective, come up with a recommendation that I think is a fair recommendation. I think it was mentioned that some of these benches or plaques in the past weren't even brought to the commission. And I think that was based on one staff person's take. And I just feel like that's shouldn't be decided unilaterally. We're more than welcome to make our recommendations to this commission, but this is the body that makes those decisions. This is where it should be held. As far as the archaeological concerns, the manicured lawn area falls well outside of that sensitive archaeological site, so that was taken in consideration. Mr. Dalton can speak more to that, but that was considered. It is well outside of that sensitive site. And again, to the procedural, everything that we're looking at, Measure AA, council policy points that this would be theoretically an appropriate donation.
Thank you. I appreciate that explanation in terms of the process.
Yeah. My feeling is that we abide by the process and we let this body decide. As far as the plaque, the bench would have the plaque mounted directly on it. The plaque for the tree would be, I want to say might have this wrong. I think it's a 6-inch plaque or an 8-inch plaque that's in either an 8-inch cement core or a 10-inch cement core, and that's put in the ground near the tree.
Regarding the ongoing master plan update process and how this kind of ties into that, the master plan, the current and the updated version, it won't spell out in granular detail what specific plants are going to be planted in particular areas. It's going to basically have to fit into a large exhibit that we can use as a guidepost and a vision document for how this is going to be, the site's going to be managed as a whole. So in terms of how that tree fits in with what's shown there on the existing master plan and what's also in development, the updated plan, this is generally consistent with that vegetation palette. That's particularly why we wanted to pick something that's going to be suitable. It's not going to be dumping excess leaf litter and foliage into the adjacent coastal sage scrub areas, and we wouldn't, we specifically kind of screened those types of trees out because we want to make sure that we're not detrimentally affecting the adjacent sensitive areas. I would also like to echo that, this particular location is within a completely disturbed, developed area of the park. So subsurface activities are not subject to monitoring, whereas, but I would like to add, during construction, we will absolutely be monitoring. Anytime subsurface activities are happening at Fairview Park, I have staff on site present monitoring every single dig that happens, because if something is encountered, we halt work at that moment, and we make sure to contact the appropriate authorities and make sure to avoid any disturbance to the site and that kind of issue.
Thank you, appreciate that.
So I have a couple questions. Since my background is development, donor engagement, you never want to not support the community engaging and being generous. But my question is, has anybody talked to the family? Because we're in the middle of sort of and I understand this is a disturbed area. We're in the middle of climate change. We're in the middle of some kind of updates, whether or not the family either would be, and also we're in part of the master plan I heard at the planning sessions is they want to put benches and, different types of resting spots along with, marcation of history and things eventually. I would love to understand if anybody from the city, and I'm happy to do this with anybody else, sit down with the family and let them know the generosity of the bench and the trees is what the city needs. It's just not right now at that park today. Whether or not, like I went by I call it the Canyon Park, I call it the Cliff Park, where there's no benches, there's so much grass. And so I would love to understand a little bit more background, and I'm very respectful of what the committee of Fairview Park is understanding, that, the bench, without the typical installation is critical. Part of it is AA, part of it is understanding we need to really understand every impact of that park. So I guess that's my first question. Has anybody been in touch with the family to see if it's really important to them to be at Fairview Park, that we let them know that, there's a planning process underway and a master plan, and trying to figure out how best to do it, whether that would fit with them or whether or not there's a close by park that could fit with them?
So yes, we did speak with the family. This has kind of been a long process.
Yeah.
I think this started last year. Originally, the family wanted the bench to be near the existing bench out at the bluffs. And so we did have further talks with the master plan coming up, some of the restoration projects out there. We did dissuade them of that location. They are, in speaking with them right now, they are set on having it at Fairview Park. Obviously, they would like to see this play out and see how the commission votes on this. Obviously, if the commission decides to deny this request, we would certainly work with the family and express our appreciation and be that face and encourage them to consider another location. And speaking with them recently, the city arborist did, they weren't inclined to pick another location. Their statement was they would withdraw their request at this time, and that's all I have from them at this point.
Yeah, because I appreciate, Kelly, you being here, but I'm not confident that I can have this move forward knowing the master plan. A lot of the discussions about how we use Fairview Park is really not cemented. It's kind of like when donors came to me at OCC and they really wanted to give donations to scholarships in a particular area that, quite frankly, we were closing down, certain kinds of computer sciences, although they received a tremendous amount. It was their career to be in a certain kind of computer science that doesn't exist anymore. Sometimes we have to say, well, that doesn't work anymore. Would you like to make a donation on behalf of this, which is a more evolving computer science? So that was thank you for working with the family, but there's a lot of unanswered questions and the timing of this, and if they're intent on Fairview Park, maybe we can see if they can wait until more time and more commitment and input, so that they understand that their donation will be utilized in a way that the future of Fairview Park can really go for and the community to use it. So, okay, so that was my main question, is how to best move this forward. So, and at this time, then, if you have a question?
Can I just clarify? So the applicant heard the motion from the Fairview Park Steering Committee and said if only the benches were approved, that they would rescind their application?
Their
Their request?
They're a part of their, and I think you can probably read it in their original request, a part of their request was have both a tree and a bench at the same location, and part of that was a shade aspect, and so their desire was to have both at the same location.
We couldn't put the bench near an existing tree?
No, they wanted new trees planted.
Got to be a new tree.
They did want, and yeah, I wouldn't recommend installing a
Yeah.
bench like in the middle of the lawn area. We typically try to have benches.
On the edges, yeah.
Yeah, along walkways where they're accessible and, yeah.
Well, part of me is like, if that's the applicant's choice, then I still feel like, they're not, our hand isn't being forced, and we could, I don't know if we're talking about calling a motion yet, but I'll just pause there.
We need public comment. So the other thing I can say is the staff was really tremendous. Knowing how much I support parks, when my mother-in-law passed away, my sister-in-law, unbeknownst to me, called up and wanted 3 trees. I think it was 3 trees planted, and they had a particular park because they heard how much I love this park. The staff helped say that park really can't have the 3 trees, so they ended up planting them at, I can't remember which park we were at. We were helping them over there. Anyway, so the staff was, it'll pop in my head, but we were over there and we were watching them plant the trees in honor of my mother-in-law. And that was great. So that's why I was asking if you had done that, because they had T-Winkle, that's right, because they said they really needed these trees and extra trees here, and they needed it at a certain spot. So it wasn't a park I kept talking about all the time near me, but it was a park so that it could honor my mother-in-law and the work I did on behalf of the city and working with her as through her outer life. So, yeah. Yes, and I have one more. Commissioner Rutherford. Questions right now, questions for city staff.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm getting caught up on some of this discussion, so look forward to hearing from the Fairview Park committee members. But I guess I'm just a little bit surprised after the discussion to see that suddenly a new bench and new trees in the park where it's needed is a controversial decision. And an old saying comes to mind, right? Don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. And I think that's what we're doing here. So I think we've heard actually some really good testimony from Mr. Dalton, from city staff, that this is already a disturbed area, that there's not going to be an impact, that it's really going to be fine to have a tree here. And I think it's a good point about the Fairview Park master plan, but I think we wouldn't want to hold up improvements in Fairview Park just because we don't have a new master plan in place, right? The old master plan is still okay at this point. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I'm a little surprised at how controversial the bench and the trees is. I look forward to hearing any public input, but my inclination is that, this seems like a really simple idea. And I just worry that this discussion also sends the wrong message, right? To people listening. We definitely want you to know that we welcome tree and bench donations in Costa Mesa. It's a beautiful thing that somebody has proposed this and put this idea forward. And so I really want to make sure that the message is clear. We appreciate that. We want to encourage more of that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions of staff? And then now I'll open it up. Oh, wait. I'm sorry, Commissioner Wall. Thank you, Commissioner White.
I was just going to cut to the chase and ask Kelly a question. What exactly did the steering committee come forward with? Was it a recommendation in favor of the bench and trees, or was it not? My understanding was it was a recommendation that the trees and the bench be included.
No, the recommendation was to approve just the bench, but
Okay.
to deny the 2 trees.
Got it. Thank you. Okay.
Any other clarifying questions?
Chair, I realize I didn't answer Vice Chair Brown's. One of her questions was about how many is too many, and that is something that staff looks at from park to park. There can be an over installation of plaques where it's not not necessarily a park, but more of a memorial garden. And we're conscious of that as staff, and we work to kind of redirect and limit those to the best of our ability.
Hence the redirection my sister-in-law's. I'm proof positive of that one. Okay, any other questions okay, then at this time I'll open it up to public comments, first to those in the audience, and then we'll move to Zoom.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing me. Where to start? I think I threw out all my notes after this discussion, but regarding the archaeology was defined by the state digging a series of borings throughout the park, and they identified an area that was more likely to have archaeological findings than others. But we all know that things don't stop at a line. How many people have traveled to Europe or the Middle East and found that we're digging a subway, and all of a sudden we found this archaeological ruin. And the same thing can occur at Fairview Park, where these trees are. In the park, there used to be a large Native American community. There's been graves identified in the park. There's accounts of the old farmers plowing and pulling up bones. That can happen anywhere in the park. Yes, there are areas that are more likely to have artifacts, and this falls close enough to the top of the canyon where that sensitive area is. The steering committee was in favor of trees in the park. They were just not in favor of the process, that it seemed like it was rushed in the process of the master plan, that the selection of the trees may not be appropriate to just select from the palette of 10 that the city has. An example would be sycamores. Sycamores are on the list as now. They do drop a lot of leaves. Those large leaves blow into the replanted areas. They kill off the opportunity for natives to grow. So what we wanted was the master plan consultants to select the most appropriate trees. And it was fine to put them in the park, but as a favor, what we thought to the Moon family, who maybe want, resolution soon, the committee recommended that those trees just be put in another park and not Fairview Park. I think they'd be happy to have them in Fairview Park if they were the right tree selected by a consultant and not necessarily by the family from a palette that the city has predetermined. With respect to the archaeology, what we asked is that the ground be cleared. Use something like ground penetrating radar. Identify that there's nothing there, and go ahead and put in the trees. But because of the Moon family, we were thinking they wanted to have that immediate closure. Okay. Last comment. The staying within the rails. There is policy 800-4. It was written in 2002. That was eclipsed by AA with respect to Fairview Park. So Fairview Park looks at expansion of use in the park, creation of the steering committee. If we go from 2 plaques to 4 plaques, that's, it's insignificant, but it's a doubling of the amount of plaques. There's fearful that are we looking at starting a memorial, grove in the park? So we want that addressed in the master plan as well, as what's the right carrying capacity for plaques in the park. So with that, I would recommend that you follow the Fairview Park Steering Committee, or at least direct additional time to look at those issues before putting the trees in, which is, I think, really what the Steering Committee wanted the ability to do. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, come on up.
Hi there. My name is Jennifer Thomas. I'm a member of the Fairview Park Steering Committee. And my concern with the trees was similar to what Committee Member Campbell had mentioned. This bench is going to be on the very edge of the manicured lawn. And the manicured lawn butts right up against an area that Kelly's team and other teams, Mr. Dalton's team, and other groups have been trying to replant native plants in that area. And there is already a lot of foliage from trees ending up in that area. The plants that are being planted aren't getting a chance to survive. Just because we have a manicured lawn at Fairview Park, which in itself was a bad idea, should the manicured lawn, just because it's there, doesn't mean that it's right and that that part of the park is the way it is. Fairview Park is very It's a very sensitive ecological site that is very rare, and it's not like any other park in the city. And it really shouldn't be treated like any other park in the city. That's why we have a whole steering committee dedicated to that park. I feel terrible that the family feels that they would remove their request just because we don't feel that more trees are needed in the manicured area. We definitely are behind having a bench with the name, that's fine. I would piggyback on Andy. I guess I would change my opinion that if the tree definitely had less foliage, we weren't worried about the leaves, a number of leaves falling and the amount of them, then I would be willing to change my recommendation to we're fine with a tree or 2 trees. But just because it's a manicured area doesn't mean it's the right thing for that area. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Eric. I'm on the Fairview Park Steering Committee as well. First of all, I want to just thank you for the nice, great comments so far from the commission, and my first time here with the commission, and your discussion about this point. But let me start with also be really clear. There's 3 items that are trying to be donated, right, from the Moon family. The benches, the plaques, and then the trees. We said yes to the first 2, to the benches and the plaques, as is in those spots, right? And I really appreciate Mr. Ryan evolving this proposal and using smaller footings and answering our questions, and I feel much better. This donation is getting better from what we saw last month. There's a list of native species trees. We heard from Commissioner Arcos and others about issues regarding some native trees and how much foliage they drop, and of course my other committee members. And so we hope that if and when those trees are planted, that they have less foliage to go on the other native plants there. So regarding the trees, I think my other fellow committee members spoke well about it. We're not saying no or no forever. And I think the chair had a good sort of compromise here, and that's where a lot of things happen, right? We want to say yes. We really appreciate their donation. But it's literally, if this were 2 years ago or 2 years from now, this would be a slam dunk, right? Because the master plan update, a complete rethinking of the park for many years is going on right now. That doesn't mean that the manicured lawn is not part of the park, but I think committee member Thomas spoke well that just because it's on the manicured lawn, these trees, that they could have an effect on the other native species. So I want to just suggest that you think of a compromise motion or possibly to delay it. And we'll stay here till this item's complete. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to have comments? Okay, Ms. Fatua, anybody on Zoom?
Yes, I do have one hand raised.
Okay.
Number ending in 814. You may now speak. You have 3 minutes.
I think I just did.
We can hear you now. Thank you. So you have no comments? Your hand is raised.
Yeah, it is. I hit *6 and it kept telling me I was still muted. Anyway, I called because approximately 3 years ago, someone who had probably done more to preserve and improve and restore Fairview Park than almost anyone in the city passed away. We inquired about creating some sort of memorial for her in Fairview Park, a tree, a bench, whatever. And staff indicated that that was a great idea, but because of the uniqueness of Fairview Park, we should wait until the city or the committee could develop an overall policy for that type of thing in Fairview Park. And because this person cared so deeply for Fairview Park, as did we thought that made a lot of sense. Why should we push our thoughts ahead of what might be best for the park? And so we waited. 6 months later, called again. Nope, not yet. Year later, not yet. And this went on and on and on. And then now suddenly, it doesnisn't matter if we have an overall policy for Fairview Park. It doesn't really matter. And it's like, oh, never mind. But we never got told never mind. And I still actually agree with the position that this needs to be under the umbrella of an overall policy that applies just to the unique location of Fairview Park and the unique resources. In that regard, I would also like to comment on the specific policy. The bench idea is nice. The tree plunk in the middle of the lawn, no big deal. However, your list is not all native trees. The trees commonly seen in California, but not all native. This tree one of them would be quite close to the westerly edge of the disturbed area, probably putting its canopy over areas slated for native development. Some of the trees on your list put out terpenes, which basically kill all vegetation around them. That's a consideration. And some of the plants go 60, 70 feet tall. Now, ironically, the letter that came with the request indicated that the gentleman enjoyed sitting and looking at Saddleback, enjoying views of Saddleback. Well, guess what? You put something in there right next to the sidewalk that's 60, 70 feet tall, you just wrecked the view of Saddleback for people walking on the bluff trail. And I don't think that would be consistent based on the letter. I think that older gentleman would have been mortified if that was his legacy. So I would hope you do not do that. So in any case, if you're going to plant trees, make sure they're set further away from the path. They're not going to wreck any views. They're consistent with the type of vegetation that should be in Fairview Park. And actually,
And your time,
really
excuse
should
me.
Follow.
Yeah, if you can wrap it up, your
If I
time
could
is over. Yeah, your time is over. Thank you.
If there are any other members who wish to speak, please raise your hand. I have caller ending in 714. You may now speak.
Thank you for taking this call. The last speaker that called in was referring to Cindy Black, who donated time and effort, who discovered things on Banning Ranch and Fairview Ranch. And for 3 years since her passing of last February, 3 years ago, we have asked repeatedly, we want to do something in her honor. And whatever we do in her memory has to preserve on every level Fairview Park, because that's what she would want. So I agree with the prior caller who said we've waited 3 years until the new policies and revamp comes. So I think it's only fair that, everything needs to be evaluated on the new policy. And I think it's wonderful that people want to give trees and benches. And we just want to remember Cindy. I don't know that we even need a plaque. I think she can see that tree from heaven, but she'd really want a native tree, and she'd want it to be in the right place and done in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on Zoom?
Chair, there are no other hands raised.
Okay. All right. At this time, do we have a motion? Then I'll take a motion in a second, then we'll have a discussion after the motion in a second. So as proposed.
I'll make a motion. I would move that we recommend that we honor the request for a bench and a plaque, but not the trees, and try to reach out to the family in order to perhaps convey to them and also strategize other parks that could utilize the trees now. I recognize what that means in terms of what the family has said, but in light of, I appreciate the Fairview Park Committee turning out tonight, and in light of all of the concerns around the trees in particular, it strikes me as not wise to move forward in that way. That's my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion before us. Do we have a second? Okay, this motion dies for lack of a second. Do we have another motion at this time?
I'd like to move to approve the staff recommendation with the caveat that Mr. Ryan consult and change the recommended type of tree to be a more suitable native species. But I'm really supportive of the recommendation for staff, and I don't think, I just think, people, at a time that people are, questioning and losing faith in government, I really don't think it's, our role to complicate the simple act of donating a tree in the bench. And I think we should let this move forward.
Do I have a second for the motion as stated? We do have a second. Do we have comments from, I'll start with.
He tried to second my motion just as a process.
Oh, you,
But it didn't show.
okay, so I did not see. Okay, so you did try to push the button, or you did, okay, so when we're doing, I think from oral. So what I need to do is go back, I'm sorry, to resend, I'm sorry, to have any confusion. So we do need to go back to the original motion that ended up not dying. So I need to rescind both the motion and the second on the floor and go back to the other one. So we have a motion and a second on, if you want to repeat the motion, Vice Chair?
My motion is to move forward with the bench and the plaque per the recommendations of the Fairview Park Steering Committee, but to not move forward with the trees in light of the concerns, and to work with the family in order to see whether, in light of a vote, they would be open to utilizing those trees elsewhere.
Okay. And then we do have a second from Commissioner Garcia Arcos. Is that true? Say it.
Yeah, second.
Okay, great. So we do have a motion and a second. So if you can, do we have any comments, questions?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes.
Can we discuss? Is that all right?
No, this is the time before we take the vote on the motion before us.
Yeah, thank you. I also would have seconded this. I'm torn also because I love government and I understand how bureaucratic and slow things can be, and I understand why that's frustrating for people. I also don't really normally like to go against staff recommendations because I do feel that government is extremely rigid, and just the amount of attention to detail that staff has to pay attention to with code and planning, all of that is more than us as normal people would ever consider, probably in our own votes. But I do feel that just the nature of these commissions and the fact that this is a very small scope of which we can interpret the use of something like a tree and the use of a donation. And to me, the weight of a fellow committee and their vote and their recommendation and just their passion and the lack of the applicant's presence here as well, that is all leaning to my support of this motion. And I really appreciate just the time and thought that everyone has put into this, what some may see as shouldn't be controversial, but if you are a passionate resident of this city, as we all are, you would understand why it is somewhat controversial. So that is my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright.
Is it possible to do a substitute motion?
You can always, on Robert's Rule, do a substitute motion, and you have to get a second to substitute the motion, and then we go to the substitute motion.
If there's interest in supporting a substitute motion, I would like to approve the original staff recommendation. I don't support us not allowing the donation of trees at a time when trees are critically needed.
So on your substitute motion, did you want to add what your motion was going to be, talking about the species of trees?
I think that's really the only thing in question here. That's the main issue, it seems like, the species of tree. So if staff was open to adjusting that.
Well, in the motion, you would need to define that.
I would move to approve the staff recommendation with adjusting the species of trees.
Okay. And do we have a second? I would like to do an oral second instead of a button. Do we have a second for the substitute motion? Commissioner Glab. Commissioner Glab seconded it first, Commissioner Wall. So we have a substitute motion, which is to approve the staff recommendations with the clarification that the species of the trees would be, how would you say, would be, the recommendation would be to go back to native trees or trees as per Fairview committee had brought up earlier. Is that what you're saying, to go back and find a consultant so that the tree is in line with?
Just reevaluate the selection of tree.
Okay.
Can we discuss?
Oh yeah, now's the discussion of the substitute motion, only not the original one. Okay.
Just for clarification
Yes.
on the motion for staff.
Correct.
Direction, would that be a consultant?
Would
that
you?
You're asking us to
I don't think
work with?
I don't think we need to hire a consultant for this. I think there's plenty of in-house expertise on staff.
So, okay, so I want to clarify. So your motion is to just have staff provide an alternative list of trees that's more in line with what?
Just a different selection of tree.
But what will be the, we need to clarify in your motion.
If I could interrupt real quick to
Yeah.
Commissioner Rutherford, we wouldn't have to hire a consultant if you wanted us to consult. MIG is our consultant working on the master plan update, and Kelly would be able to have those discussions with MIG.
Perfect.
Okay. So it would clarify to work with the consultants that are working on the Fairview Park master plan. Is that, okay? Does that clarify that? Is that clarify for staff? Okay.
Absolutely, thank you.
So now, if the motion and second is clarified, so now we'll take comments on this substitute motion. So yes, Vice Chair Brown.
Couple of comments and then a procedural question. One thing is, I think that it's an important part of government to honor the process, and I do feel like the process here is that a variety of stakeholders who have both experience and expertise on the park have weighed in with particular recommendations. So I think that if you approve this substitute motion, that is something that's not in alignment with that committee. And I just want to note that that's an important part of government too. And I also would draw to, I appreciate the donation, I do. I also want to note that while we have the Fairview Park Committee here and have over several meetings, we have not heard from the Moon family, and that we've actually have had 2 meetings now and a Fairview Park Committee. And that's something that neither here nor there in terms of whether we accept this or not. But I do think that when we're talking about the process of government, that how people weigh in and those who have recommendations needs to be a part of it. So I don't think it's ridiculous to have this kind of investment, especially when the city has so clearly invested so much time and money into the master plan. I hope we're close to the master plan. I mean, when I heard those callers, there's a part of me that became very depressed, like years and years and years, but I do feel like we're getting closer. So my process question is, what happens now? With the original motion, is the original motion no longer on the table? With the substitute motion, does the substitute motion get voted on first?
Yes, so the substitute motion overtakes the original motion because it has a first and a second. So we as a committee vote first on the substitute motion. If it doesn't pass, then we go back to the original motion that you had as a motion maker, and then I think it was Commissioner Wright seconded it. So that's a procedural Robert's Rule question. Or it was, okay. It was Garcia Arcos, thank you. So is that clear? So we first deal with the substitute motion. If it does not pass, then we go back to the original motion and work on that motion. Yes, Commissioner. What?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
If I could just interject, it's been brought up twice, and so just on behalf on the Moons, typically donations such as this would be a consent item calendar. It's very unusual that we have this robust of a discussion regarding this donation. So it's not unusual that a donor or requestor would not be present. We actually typically tell them that they're more than welcome to be an advocate, but they don't necessarily have to show up because typically it is a consent item. So that's probably more of staff's responsibility, maybe to explain that a little bit more to them. They are made aware of the meeting. They're offered to be here. But I know it's been brought up twice. I just feel like I need to mention
And
that,
it's not
mention
a
that
voting,
fact.
It's not a voting issue for me,
I
but I
appreciate that.
do know over the years that I've been on the commission, when there have been other plaques donated, the family will often be here. Not exclusively, but often. So it was just something that it struck me, but it's not a voting issue for me.
Okay, so is it Commissioner Wright? Who would like to speak next?
I have a question.
Okay, we have a clarifying question, then we
So
have,
the substitute motion is
Yes.
an alternative tree approved by the Fairview Steering Committee?
so the substitute motion as it was defined, if I understand this right, is to go back to the original approval of the staff recommendation with the addition of clarifying the trees that the list will be provided will include trees that will be provided by the consultant developing the master plan. So it won't be from the original list that the city provides the donor. It will be from a list that is more in keeping with Fairview Park.
And the consultant was not involved in this current list?
Correct. It's if I can get clarification on that, Rob, this is a list that was provided to the family. That's a general list that the city provides. That is a list of trees that are usually planted in parks, given it's on a grass. I mean, I know you have different trees depending on the topography.
Yeah, some of these trees are typically planted, some are not. The cork oak, is we have a few of them. That would probably be it's one of my favorites, but most of them are. We don't have a lot of California bay trees, but that is one we planted the medians nearby on Placentia Avenue that's doing well. So yes, I'm making a long answer.
That's okay.
It should be short, but yeah, the consultant was not
It sounds like
included in
that
this.
long answer is what was needed, so thank you. Okay, and then I'm going to go to Commissioner Garcia Arcos. You've been waiting.
So there's a saying, and it says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now. But there's another saying that says plant the right tree in the right location. So what we need to do is really talk about what species we're going to plant. I don't think 10 trees with our list is enough. LA has, I believe, 100 or over 100 in their list. So if we can expand and see what will fit best for that area, I think that would be best, because I don't see much future for those trees in that area, in that specific area. So if we can choose the right tree for a different park, I would go towards that route. And I feel like we have a little bit of lack of reaching out to other experts, and I really respect everything that you guys do. But there's other committees that we can reach out to and try to see if we can figure out a better option, because it's very difficult to pick from 10 trees and just decide on that. Because if this is a memorial tree, I want it to live for 100 years. Is that realistic with the trees that we have now within the 10 with 10 trees? That would be a question that probably can't be answered right now, but. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to make sure all the commissioners get their first time. Do we have another commissioner that wants to say? Commissioner Wall, you look like you might know. Okay, so then we have vice chair, and then we'll go back to Commissioner Rutherford.
So will ground penetrating radar be used because the site has things of significant archaeological value in it, and we do not know that site does not have it? Or will it be that we dig the hole and we watch and we make sure? Like, I just want to make sure, or is the motion going forward?
Well, we don't know at this point, but what you're clarifying is if this motion passes as motion, that you're asking the question is, does it include acknowledgement of the indigenous resources on Fairview Park or in Fairview Park?
I think Mr. Dalton spoke to that as far as they always have staff from Fairview Park, the wetlands area available and monitoring anytime we do dig in that area. That entire park has already been dug at least a couple of feet in grading and irrigation, sewer lines, electrical lines. There's not a square inch of that park that hasn't, the grass area that has not been already disturbed and dug up. But we would still have it, we would still have someone out there monitoring, and we do every time we dig.
Are these people with a background in this kind of sensitive resource management? Or are these like park staff? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So in this area, it would be park staff from Mr. Dalton's team. I don't know that their background. He could speak to that.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Let me put your podium mic on. I apologize.
Yes, regarding, we did not intend to have ground penetrating radar present. That is an additional cost that we don't have a contract for that. And the intent of these type of donation is for the applicant who's submitting those to do it at their cost. We would be doing the inspection, of course, but in regards to the training that who'd be present working and overseeing the actual subsurface activities, my staff have been involved in past projects involving ground disturbance at the site, and they've worked alongside archaeological monitors. They've received training in specifically what to look for, so they're not an archaeologist or a registered archaeologist per se, but they've performed work in these types of situations. And there are projects done where construction workers are actually trained to monitor for potential sensitive activity or sensitive resources, and they halt work when those are encountered, and they receive training on that, similar to what my staff would be performing.
Okay. Commissioner Rutherford, you had some comment?
Oh, yeah. Great discussion. I just wanted to add, because I think Vice Chair Brown made a good point about historical precedent. I think there was a big break in historical precedent by having a memorial bench and plaque donation go back to committee. That's not something that's traditionally been done. So I'm just surprised that we're spending so much time on what I think would be a fairly simple donation request.
Did anybody else have any comments? So here's my comments. There was a feeling of the commission, that items coming for Fairview Park is a unique, because we have a Fairview Park committee. So we're trying to figure out a process whereby before things come to us, we have input from the committee. So that's why the commission voted to send it back to begin that process, to have the committee be included in, not besides staff, because they do so much work on behalf of Fairview Park, and they have so much dedication and understanding of AA, of the master plan. So that's why this is unique. No other park has this go back and forth, because no other park has a committee that's been working that hard. So that's my observations and my belief from the ones that were here. The second thing is, I heard tonight that if we provide, we meaning the city staff work with, it sounds like there's part of the Fairview Park Master Plan for Mr. Dalton's team is also to understand what's better species of plants, not just trees, but bushes and replanting native plants, that's a better way to go versus the original 10. And I also heard clearly from our Commissioner Garcia Arcos, who's very familiar with horticulture and climate change, and understanding one park is only one ability to plant good quality long-term care and maintenance. So what I'm hearing from this substitute motion is that to the bench seems not the problem, but that there will be considerable care in taking when selecting the trees that better match what actually goes there, but at the same time care of where the selection is, that there will be care to make sure that you're not disturbing any native, not just, because it's a very sensitive native living place, and we don't know the full extent of what life they had. We have pockets that we do know a lot about. So what I'm hearing from this motion is that those steps will take, and I heard from some of the committee members today that if the trees were, and the way the bench has now been defined to be anchored is correct, is what they approve of, and that the committee member said if a tree that better fits so that it doesn't impact leaves in the native species areas, that that would be a good solution. But also two of the callers, what made me concerned, two of the callers have trees that they want to donate, but they've been put off. So that's my concern, who they are, and if there's a way and it's not to this motion, but it's overall, how come they were not provided an opportunity to have their donations come forward, or whether it was self-imposed. So that made me nervous, and I'd love for staff to figure out who these two parties are, because as this motion maker, is we never have enough trees. They have to be the right trees at the right park, at the right median, the right everything. So those are kind of my comments here. So with that, we have a substitute motion and a second. Are we ready to take a vote are we ready on the substitute motion? Okay. So those who we're going to take a motion, we're going to take a vote on the substitute motion. So please vote.
Motion carries 4-3 to approve staff recommendations with a review of the tree analysis for the selection. If I missed anything?
And the care of of the location of the planting.
Correct.
That its impact on native historical site. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your help. And so we'll go on to the next donation of a memorial tree and plaque at Lions Park. I don't mean I am so selfishly, as I'm chair, I'm going to say this. I am so excited that our community wants to continue to plant trees in honor of their people who enjoy our parks. So I appreciate this. So if we can do, before we start this time, I will have you do your report.
Thank you again, Chair. The next item is a request of a memorial tree and plaque at Lions Park. Maintenance Services received a letter from Friends of Richard Dick W. Janser requesting permission to donate a tree and memorial plaque in memory of Richard. The tree and plaque would be installed at Lions Park. A little bit of background about Mr. Janser. He was born in Erie, Pennsylvania. He was a United States Army veteran who served in the Vietnam War, where he received a Purple Heart. He graduated from Penn State University and obtained a degree in business management. After he graduated, he became the founding father of the Orange County chapter of the Penn State University Alumni Association. He was an active member until his death in 2023. Mr. Janser owned and operated his own real estate and property management company in Costa Mesa for many years. He's a decades-long member of the Knights of Columbus, where he held several positions, including Grand Knight. Mr. Janser had a special place in his heart for children, especially those that came from challenging backgrounds. He served as an advocate for CASA, which is a court-appointed special advocates group, and was a long-standing supporter of Mary's Path and Project Cuddle in Costa Mesa, which both serve children, underprivileged children. For most of his life, Mr. Janser lived and served in the city of Costa Mesa. The requester chose Lions Park to plant the memorial tree and plaque due to his love of children and the fact that the Penn State University mascot is the Nittany Lion. The requester felt it would be fitting for the memorial to be in a park with an active playground. Lions Park certainly fits that bill, and those kids are definitely experiencing some carefree joy as they play. The donor worked with the city arborist to select a New Zealand Christmas tree for the memorial. This matches an existing memorial tree in the park that's closer to 18th Street. Staff has identified a potential location for the tree. It's in a turf area adjacent to the existing pathway and just south of the playground. depicted by that red star, obviously an approximate location, somewhere far enough from the concrete. Here's a few photos of that particular area, just for reference. Staff has reviewed the suggested location, determined that the location is suitable for the tree and plaque. The installation of the tree and plaque will have minimal fiscal impact on the city, as the donor will incur the cost of the donated items. The request does meet council policy. Therefore, it's recommended that the commission approve the request for the donation of memorial to Mr. Janser. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
At this time, do any of the commissioners have questions regarding the donation? Yes. Yes, Commissioner.
Just out of curiosity, what was that species that was recommended?
New Zealand Christmas tree?
New Zealand. I believe there's
Metrocedrus excelsa?
Yes. I believe there's one. You said it's close to 18th Street, right?
Correct, yeah.
How is that one doing?
That one is not doing as well as I would like it to be doing. It was a part of the original reconstruction, so I think that suffered through that huge process of reconstructing that huge park and quite an undertaking. I would like that tree to do better. Typically, New Zealand Christmas trees do well in irrigated lawn areas. They're very adaptable. But that particular tree, I was just out there the other day looking at it, and I wish it were doing better.
Okay. I believe there's a Pinus canariensis that is also next to that one. How is that one doing?
Some of the pines right now are undergoing a little bit of stress. I think they're still recovering from the construction activity, even though that was quite some time ago. A lot of stress you won't see in trees for sometimes years after the fact. But a lot of the pines in that park, they were under stress from drought prior to construction. We observed some issues with some of the trees at that time. And construction probably didn't help those trees, but I think most of them have improved since then with some of the recent rains, and the ceasing of construction obviously helped.
Okay. Another question. So I've noticed that the maintenance is, from when I checked those trees a few months ago, there was a lot of weeds growing around, and then I passed by a few weeks after, and I noticed that the weeds started dying. Do you guys use Roundup to kill all the weeds around the base?
No, City of Costa Mesa we're glyphosate free. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We use organic herbicides only. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That's awesome. I did have a recommendation. Due to so much compaction in that area, I would recommend that maybe we add a little bit of biology in the soil so it can start, maybe bringing in a little bit better chances of the survival for this future tree. That way, it doesn't suffer the same fate as the one that's declining right now. Just a recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from different commissioners on this? Okay. At this time, since we have no more questions from commissioners, open it up to the public. Do we have anybody in the audience who would like to comment on this donation? And do we have anybody on Zoom?
No hands are raised at this time.
Okay, so at this time, I will close public comment. And do I have, if I have someone make a motion on the donation as presented? I have a motion by Commissioner Wall. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Rutherford. So are we ready to take a vote? Okay.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve the tree donation plaque at Lions Park.
Great, thank you. At this time, we'll go to new business 2, the 2023 annual report from Major League Softball. I appreciate this league tremendously. So
yes, we'll turn a page here.
Okay.
Good evening, Chair Dorn Parker and Commissioners. My name is Ashley Thomas. I'm a Senior Recreation Supervisor here in the City of Costa Mesa, and I'm delighted to present the 2023 Annual Report for Major League Softball, or MLS. MLS has been an invaluable partner to the city of Costa Mesa since August 2015, contributing significantly to the success and enjoyment of co-ed softball to our co-ed softball program. Their contributions include league marketing services, program administration and coordination, officiant services, and implementation of computerized scoring system. Operating Sunday through Friday, 6 days per week, MLS offers 3 seasons annually, which is spring, summer, and fall, each including 8 regular league games, followed by playoffs. The co-ed adult softball program operates at a Tewinkle Athletic Complex and follows the current SMAF rulebook to ensure fair play and safety. In 2023, participation numbers were impressive, with 90 teams in the spring, 76 teams in the summer, 83 teams in the fall. The revenue sharing model between MLS and the city stands as a 60-40 split, with MLS receiving 60% and the city receiving 40% of the registration fees. In conclusion, city staff extends our appreciation to Dave Johnson, President, Shannon Beersley, General Manager of Major League Softball, for the countless hours that they've invested in the program. Their commitment to offering a wholesome, competitive adult softball program focusing on safety, fair play, sportsmanship has been instrumental in the program's success. Right now, Shannon is currently on Zoom, and so she is available as well as myself to answer any questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, do any of the commissioners have questions for either Ashley or Shannon, who's on Zoom? What a great presentation. This is a wonderful partnership. So, and I know your team has been working very hard to make sure that it's available and that they follow the rules, and also the report about how much they make sure everything is safe, fun, and athletic. So thank you.
Wonderful. Shannon, I know you're on Zoom right now. Would you like to say a few words on behalf of MLS? You're welcome to do so at this point if you'd like to.
Okay, great. I just wanted to say thank you for involving us in this this call. It's been refreshing seeing all these smiling faces and happy thoughts. We don't get a lot of that on our end in other cities, not Costa Mesa. But we love this program. The teams love the program. Our numbers are very strong. They're consistently staying strong. And we really have very minimal complaints coming in from the participants, including our officials who work the games, our umpires and our scorekeepers and our league directors. Everybody seems to really enjoy being out there. And that says a lot in adult sports. That's not always the case. So it's really great and refreshing to have that happen so consistently in Costa Mesa. And I want to thank you guys all. Ashley and Emily have been really great in assisting us in everything we could possibly need. So thank you guys, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon, for coming on Zoom. We appreciate it. So no other. Okay. Any other questions, Ashley? Oh, yes, we have a question from Commissioner Wall.
Just curious, I looked at the numbers that were on the more comprehensive report, the number of teams that were playing per season. Where do you see that? Are they jammed with 90 teams playing in, say, the spring season? Are they full? And in the other two seasons, they seem to not be that heavily booked. So I'm just curious, are we accounting for that, or can we adjust? Do we have much wiggle room there if you get a sudden surge of extra teams that want to play?
That is correct. They have the availability. Typically, to hold about 90 to 95 teams is usually average. So they do have the capability to add on more teams if they come forward and are interested in playing.
Thanks.
Yes. I just have a personal anecdote to share. So I participated in this softball league with my coworkers None of us knew how to play softball, and just some insight. The teams that play this are really good. They are like, I don't know if you guys know, don't park on the parking lot right outside of T Winkle, because I'm telling you, they are hitting them out of the park. I think we were kind of like the pity team, because they started letting us double our points and we would still lose. But we had so much fun, and it just gave me a whole new perspective on, keeping these hobbies and these sports and all these friend groups and teams that do stuff like this. It's so important, and I'm really glad that we get to offer it. We will not be playing again, but maybe another year.
That's a great antidote. Anything else? All right, so this is a report. Thank you so much for the report and for the work you do to coordinate this, this lovely, wonderful softball league. We'll go on to Park Ranger reports, 10 monthly reports.
So, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I will take this one. Before you is the monthly Park Ranger report. We don't report on this, so this is just for your review. But I do want to note that we are working with PD to bring them in the next couple of meetings for an update. We were working on a schedule of some sorts for either like a biannual update to the commission, so that when you do have questions, they'll be able to answer.
Okay. Do we have any comments on the report? The only comment that I have is I really appreciate the summary, but one of the things that would help me as a commissioner, which is not on this report anymore, is I see citations. One of the things that was really helpful is to have maybe behind it the details, like for example, Balearic Park shows one citation, what that citation was. We have 10 at Ketchum-Leibold, so that helps us understand what's happening, what are the citations in particular, so are there things that we can do to support the patrols, or like we found out some of the, a lot of the citations when I first on here had a lot to do with bicycles without license, which then we figured out there was no way to get licensing because of COVID. So if we could have a summary, which is great, but then behind it just a listing what those citations are, that would be really helpful.
And that was something you and I both raised at the last meeting. So
Yeah.
just to
So I did bring that up with them. They, as mentioned before, this is their internal document that they choose to share with the commission.
Yeah.
And so I did bring it up and said, that's why we're working on a schedule to have PD come and be present at some of these meetings in the future. So that way these type of questions that you have can be addressed.
No, I appreciate that, but this would be a simple, especially the citations seem to be what most of us are interested in to see what they are, is if it's a lot of time to come and to our meetings and answer these questions, but if there can, and behind the summaries is just to put what the citation was, the details of the citation. And that way, if we have questions about a summary, for example, at Ketchum-Leibold, then if there's a schedule when we have the PD Park Rangers can come, then we can ask more detailed questions at that time. But I think that's what we had asked last time, this is a great summary. It really is wonderful, but especially right now in citations, if we can just list what those citations are behind it.
I will bring your comments to PD.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on this? Okay, great. We'll go ahead and move to the director's report.
Good evening once again, and I will try to make this brief. I know that we had some long agenda items so far, so real quick, going over some of the highlights in our director's report. I'd like to thank you, Chair, for attending our All Abilities Dance. That is a program that is near and dear, I think, to a lot of our staff's heart because it's new. We're trying to get it up and running. We're doing some I think, making great progress towards expanding those type of programs. We do have staff scheduled to attend an All Abilities Expo in LA in the next coming weekend to learn even more on the staff side about that type of programming and what that community needs. So that will be fairly exciting. And a kind of a good segue is that we had a couple of the FDC, Fairview Developmental Center workshops. We had 2 of them where they had stations, and a couple of the participants and parents of the participants from our abilities dance and our conversations over coffee actually learned about the FDC workshops through our programming and then ended up coming and advocating for that community. So that just shows you the segue of how we're doing outreach for one program for another project. So I thought that was really neat, and to be able to talk to that same community at the FDC workshops. Going on our contract classes, I just want to highlight, we're really trying to expand some of our free contract classes, providing more free college education classes, and also maybe in the future, we're looking at expanding some kind of financial planning and just finance classes, more for teens and youth, but even could be even for adults, because outside of recreational fee-based classes, some of those are critical and we think they should be free. So we're looking at supplementing some of those classes. The college application process, we all know, can sometimes be very convoluted and difficult and confusing for a lot of college students, especially if you're doing it on your own. So just navigating all the aspects, whether it's financial pieces or just the application process. So we're looking at a couple of those free-based classes for the kids that are going through that process. In terms of, I know Fairview Park has gotten brought up a lot today. I encourage you, I'm always going to encourage you guys to get out there, maybe go to a restoration day, even if it's just one time. I know in the last year that I've learned more about Fairview Park from our Fairview Park administrator than I ever thought I would. I went on one of the hikes, the nature walks that we had there, and it was breathtaking. And you know, we're in the office every day, and I was amazed at what I saw. So I encourage you to go out to a restoration day. You learn a lot by getting out in that park. Moving on to our LEAP program, or early childhood education, I just want to say that I know that I had mentioned that we converted to 5 days a week. Ashley oversees that program, and she had let me know that recently we're at full capacity, which is great. And this just goes to show you, we really changed up our marketing, letting parents know, like, hey, it's 5 days a week and not 3 or 2. And that really, I think, resonated with parents. I know that that's what I would look for of a mom of a 3-year-old. So. I wanted to note that we are working on our teen programming still, trying to really hit the nail on the head with that and try to get it right. We're still in the middle of remodeling one of our teen centers at the Downtown Recreation Center. In this next budget process, we will be asking for more allocation to put towards teen programming for either at-risk youth or just more recreational opportunities for the teen population. Sometimes we focus more on the youth, which is elementary and younger, or adults recreation, but sometimes teens is really where we need to focus. And so we're still going to be expanding and exploring the opportunities of what we can do with that. And we are doing research with other cities and talking to the teens in our community. So stay tuned on more to come on that. Couple of events coming up. We have Spring Fest coming up, so I encourage you all to come by, wear your name tags, engage with the community. There's no better way for you guys to get involved in the community than getting out there. I personally like to reiterate about special events that sometimes special events mean more to a community than you know. For the parents that maybe sometimes may not be able to afford a trip to Disneyland or a trip to a theme park. The community events are what you remember going to because they're affordable, ours especially because they're free, or you are a unique experience. What makes our events even more unique is that we have incorporated the water bottle stations, and I don't know if you've seen this. So we've implemented our own water stations, so we are now encouraging you to bring your own water bottle. to all of our events, save on single-use plastics at all of the events. And so we've been doing this now, I think, about 6 events or so now, and I don't have the number in front of me, but we've saved, I think, thousands of single-use plastics from being dumped into the ocean, which I think is really important, just not from the event side, but this city's sustainability goals is great. And then another concept that we're constantly thinking about sustainability is this year with our egg hunt, which is made of plastic eggs. We are asking residents to, after you indulge in the egg hunt, come to the egg returning station and turn in your eggs for another either prize or certificate, and we will find a way to reuse them. So that's what a lot of, so just, I think that's what makes our city unique is we're constantly thinking like, we have these events, even in Parks and Recreation, but then we have the sustainability factor, like what else can we do? What more can we do? So we're always looking for more ideas, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
That's great.
And then speaking of sustainability, just keep on your calendars, Earth Day Festival, April 20th, Saturday, April 20th. We'll get you more information to come, but that's always a really fun event that's held on the front lawn outside here in City Hall. You'll also be getting more information on the Love Costa Mesa Day. I know our commissioner has mentioned some projects that will happen at Shalimar. So we do have a staff member in the city manager's office who's our liaison for Love Costa Mesa Day. So we'll get you all the good details on Love Costa Mesa Day and the projects that will be coming ahead of you. And then last but not least, I know that we have some CIP projects and the grant-funded projects. We expect, I think, our director, Seth Araman, will be coming back to you, I think, in May with an update, with a CIP budget update, and just more on those CIP projects in the works. So, but that's it from me. If you have any questions, let me know.
So do we have any questions? Yes, Vice Chair.
Do you know for the CIP process, will the Fairview Park projects be a part of the CIP listing for when we see it next?
Yes, we did go over that, and we will make sure that they will be included in the next presentation.
Excellent, thank you. Do you know when we'll see the Fairview Park master plan?
I'm sorry, can you reiterate?
At the Fairview Park committee meeting, there was discussion of us seeing the Fairview Park master plan, a draft of it, either in March or April. Obviously not March. Do you have so it sounds like that's not on the immediate agenda.
Before a draft gets released, we will definitely be bringing you guys an update. It won't be the draft, it will be an update. So we're a little bit, trying to figure the schedule out. So we don't have a tentative date, but you will be seeing, I think, in hopefully next month or so, this commission will be getting an update just on the process that has taken place so far.
Thank you. And last Fairview Park question, unfortunately, Mr. Dalton is gone. Do we have a sense of the date for when the next public input meeting will be? I know it says spring, but that feels like soon.
We don't, and that timeline is getting pushed back a little bit, and so that will not happen until we figure out when the draft will be released.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Wright.
I am just so impressed that there are 100 people on the wait list for, 140 on the wait list for the community gardens. Especially since we had them come in, I was just really inspired by them. Do you have any updates of like expansion plans there?
So if you ask Ashley down there, Ms. Thomas, she'll say we need 20 more gardens, and there's not a day that goes by that she doesn't tell me like, are we going to get another garden? Because she loves them, but she also handles the gardens with her staff. So, but we have no plans for expansion at this time, but we still are working on some maybe creative solutions for raised beds that conform and that will actually work in the garden area. I think I've brought to the attention that Tony, who's our gardener that spends a lot of his time out there, has made some prototypes, I guess you would say, that are really working. And I think they also they went over to OCC and looked at, I don't know, Ashley, if you want to speak to that. What? Oh, Garden Groves community garden. So there's still some ideas to be had there because we definitely don't want that list to be that long. But I do think that we're fortunate enough because we do have 2 and some cities have none. So I think that's awesome. But yeah, if somebody wants to find us a space for more community gardens, we'll take it.
What do we attribute the high demand of this to? Like, I feel like we don't even, sometimes I ride my bike past the Del Mar one and I tell everyone, oh, did you know that's a garden? Like, is it just word of mouth or why is it so popular?
Yes, it's basically word of mouth. We do not obviously market it, being that the wait list is very heavy. So it's strictly word of mouth at this point. That's
We're
correct.
gatekeeping it at this point. And then my other final comment is just on the LEAP program. I'm just really glad that we have an affordable program for pre-elementary school age that doesn't really exist elsewhere in the city. So I'm really glad for that.
Any other comments? So I just have a couple kudos. I love the mobile recreation is growing dramatically. I see a big smile from Ashley. I am so impressed at how quick it came up, and it's so critical to, especially to those underpark communities. So thank the staff for all of that. Also, I really appreciate how much you're thinking on how we support our teens with financial literacy, especially those that are lower income. They tend not to have a lot of opportunities to have financial literacy, but also which the college application and FAFSA. My only advice is we don't have to, I know you're probably looking at partners, but I know Soy does a great job of helping educate the community, their clients on FAFSA, because that's really the key of the applications is, and they have to start that as their junior year. So just, I love that you're thinking outside and what teens really could use and how can we provide those resources. So thank you for doing that. The only other thing that's interesting is you were talking about community gardens. I wonder if we could get the city council to agree that the development going in, they install community gardens in all those dense type of buildings instead of, as part of the green space. That would be, because that's who tends to crave it is they don't have personal space, they don't have backyards, they tend to have balconies or no outdoor spaces. So I will be making a couple phone calls as you were talking about that. I thought that's a way to do a public-private partnership as far as that goes. With that, let me go back. I think. Any other comments for today? Yes.
Thank you for everything you shared right now. That's really amazing, and I'm glad that we're heading towards the right direction. I truly believe that. I did want to give a recommendation, and as you saw, there was some people that are willing to collaborate with us. So I've noticed that the mobile recreational program is in Shalimar, and we're really excited about that. We've noticed that there's not much community outreach. Last time I saw, there was 4 staff, and then there was only 2 kids. And I was able to record a video with permission of a mother. She had a suggestion of like how to reach out to the families. And so I just feel like we can better utilize that resource, but I think we're heading the right direction. I can share that video with you. That's not an issue. But yeah, I think that's really amazing where we're going. So thank you for that. And for the community garden, I actually do have a space that has been donated specifically for that. If you want to take a look at it, it's on 18th Street and Monrovia on the corner house across from the liquor store. And that's actually a space that we can use if we can go through the permits and all that. We can talk to the residents about that. So just want to bring that up. I think that's
great.
Pretty cool. Thanks.
All right. We know who you'll be talking with soon. Any other comments or from staff? All right. At this time, do I have a motion for adjournment? Do I have a second? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for everybody. We'll see you next month.